Hi guys, how's it going? I'm joined here by Noah Davis, who's a post-war contemporary art specialist at Christie's. He's acted as head of sale for the department's online-only first open auctions, and he spearheaded the historic sale of Beeple's Everydays, which we'll be talking about shortly. Janine Yorio is the co-manager at Republic Realm, which is the world's first digital real estate development company. So earlier this morning, we had a futurist, and he said sort of very confidently to the audience, we don't have to talk about blockchain, NFTs, you guys all know what that means. Let's just pretend that there's a 10-year-old named Timmy out there watching this and break it down a little bit. All of this technology is based on something called blockchain. Which one of you guys wants to take that one? Let's explain it in simple
Oh, what the blockchain is?
Yeah.
Okay, so the blockchain is essentially a decentralized public ledger that everybody can trust, and it is very, very good for doing various things. The blockchain that you're probably most familiar with is Bitcoin, and what Bitcoin does is basically allows people to send each other money and trust that this decentralized ledger is always going to correctly show the truth to everyone and to anybody who's curious about what's going on that blockchain. The Ethereum blockchain is a little more interesting, in my opinion, because on that blockchain, you can run decentralized applications. And one of the nice things that decentralized applications can do is create non-fungible tokens.
Which are NFTs, right?
Yeah, which are NFTs.
I think some of that might have gone over Timmy's head.
I can make it even simpler. I think the easiest way to understand what blockchain is, it's a spreadsheet in the cloud. And it's a spreadsheet where everybody can make changes to it, but only if everybody agrees to what those changes are. And that's the simplest way to think about it. The reason why Bitcoin works is because all of the transactions are logged on this cloud-based spreadsheet, but nobody can make changes unless everybody agrees that that is in fact a change that everybody agrees to. And what Noah is alluding to as it pertains to non-fungible tokens, all this is a lot of jargon. Non-fungible tokens are just a thing where you can track who owned it and when they moved it around. So as you can imagine in the art world, where vintage and counterfeiting are always something people are worried about, being able to revert back to this spreadsheet that is incontrovertible is tremendously powerful, and it has made people very comfortable deploying lots and lots of capital because they can know for sure that everybody agrees that they own this thing that is real.
Right. It's like the difference between having a file on your computer that only you know about, and then there's millions of copies of that file that all agree with each other. And so NFTs are really their pointer. Well, let's break it down. We've explained the blockchain. I think Timmy sort of gets it. An NFT is, well, you guys take that one. Noah, let's really break it down. What is it?
What is an NFT? So, I mean, essentially, an NFT is a block on that chain, but it can only be in one place at one time, and it really can't be destroyed. It can be effectively rendered useless or burnt. But really, an NFT is an asset. It's an object that you own, but does not have objecthood in the traditional sense.
So, and it's like, it's basically, would it be wrong to say it's impossible to destroy an NFT? I mean, you mentioned it's something called burn, but like, broadly speaking, like, if all the hackers in the world got together, could they get rid of one? Tell me about that. How survivable are these?
This is a really funny discussion because I've had this discussion with lawyers at Christie's and with really, really smart people. And yes, it is possible. It's highly, highly, highly unlikely. The thing is, if you are worried about the integrity of your NFT, then that means you're probably experiencing an apocalyptic event. You need to find clean water to drink.
Right.
You're not going to be worried about your NFT collection because of the redundancy and how IPFS works and Arweave and but all these things are.
Timmy,
they make
IPFS.
So Timmy, if we're talking to Timmy, I would just say, Timmy, do you play Fortnite? And if Timmy said yes, I would say, okay, skins in Fortnite, but there's only one skin.
Right.
And he'd be like, yeah, I get it.
Right. Okay, cool. So I think we have a basic idea of what it is. Let's talk about the money involved. So, not to be crass, but we have, I think, a slide. Whoa, can we skip back one? Sorry. So this is part of an artwork by an artist named Beeple that Christie's recently sold. I'm sure you've seen that a lot. Christie's recently sold for a considerable sum. How much was it? Just
69 going on 70 million.
Right. So that's a heavy chunk of change for that. Can you just sort of describe what this is, how it came about, how the sale went? Walk us through this.
Sure. So Beeple's Everydays collage was the first NFT that I sold. And around the time I sold it, I really didn't know what NFTs were. And yeah, we offered this in March of this year. Beeple is a technologist and an artist and all around just like a brilliant, sweet, down-to-earth human being who is also extremely uncouth. And
if you could zoom in on some of those, you'd see what he's talking about.
Yeah. So when we initially started our conversation with Mike and Maker's Place, Beeple's real God-given name is Mike Winkleman. But his first submission for the NFT that we would eventually sell was his 5,000th entry in the Everydays series so far, which is a really horrifying image of some of his most iconic characters, which include like naked Buzz Lightyear or Kim Jong-un, but he's massive and lactating. So yeah, that's kind of how Mike's brain works. And I said, no way, Mike, this is not brand appropriate. We need to workshop this a little bit. Can we think about something a little more Christie's? And he came up with this collage of every one of his Everydays. He's been making these for 13 years, where every single day he creates one of these digital drawings. And if you zoom in onto these pixels, they become unique little worlds. And you get to see the evolution of Mike from a, edgy 4chan tier kind of clueless white dude artist to now somebody who I regard as kind of a, for better or worse, honoré daumier of the 21st century with all this political commentary and these weird dystopian tech landscapes and things. He's out of his mind, but in a brilliant kind of way.
So tell me, like, who is the audience for this? And Janine, feel free to weigh in too. Is there any crossover between what you'd call like a traditional art fan or buyer and people who buy NFTs?
For Beeple, not really. Okay. For NFTs, yes. There's definitely crossover, and we're seeing a lot more crossover, and I'm aware of various institutions and collections that are on the sidelines and ready to really dive in, the same way that Visa recently purchased their Cryptopunk, and then Arizona Iced Tea bought a Bored Ape, and Budweiser bought a Tom Sachs rocket. Like, there are a lot of similar stories that are going to be told soon.
Right. Cryptopunks, by the way, is another NFT. What was the company that put them together?
Larva Labs.
Larva Labs, right. And I think these are the ones at Christie's auction.
Yeah.
Each one of those is an NFT.
Yep. Each one of those is a non-fungible token, and we sold all 9 as a set in our evening sale in May, and that was really stressful.
But, these 9, what a skeptic might call cartoons, sold for what, 15? I don't remember.
17 million, and I know that there was an offer on the Alien maybe a month ago for as much as was paid or more than for the whole group at the time. That was rejected immediately. So
gotcha.
And the irony is they're cartoons, but objectively they're not particularly good.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is that the collective belief is that these 9 things are worth $17 million, even more, is what Noah's telling you. Somebody wanted to buy just one of them for even more recently. And why is that? And that's because of that thing we started talking about, was the blockchain. I could email you that JPEG, the very one that's playing on that screen right now, but you don't own it. The person that owns it is the person who is registered on the blockchain ledger, and you can't fudge that. You can't forge it. The provenance is guaranteed. And so that is why you're seeing money that traditionally would have poured into traditional art going into NFTs, because the provenance is something that can be absolutely guaranteed through the blockchain.
Right, and it's such a good point. People always bring up, well, it's just a JPEG, but so many people all over the world have, images of the Mona Lisa prints. There's still one original thing, and that's a lot less survivable. I hope it does survive, but it would be a lot harder to destroy these cartoons than it would be to destroy the Mona Lisa in a weird way. Let's talk about the metaverse a little bit. I think Timmy wants to know about that. So, Janine, what is that? What is the metaverse?
So I think the easiest way to understand the metaverse is you have to roll back the clock a little bit. So what is social media? Social media is a way to connect with your friends, but you can search by name, right? So you can go on and find Noah Davis and figure out what he ate for dinner and where he went on summer vacation. What's the metaverse? The metaverse is the very same thing, except he and I can be there at the same time. So when you scroll through your Instagram feed, I'm scrolling and you're scrolling, but you don't know that I'm scrolling and I don't know that you're scrolling. When you're in the metaverse, we're standing there side by side and we can actually communicate with each other. I'm like, oh, hey, you're doing this and I'm doing that. We can do it together. And I like to think of it as the metaverse is to social media what Zoom is to YouTube, right? YouTube is video. But Zoom is video that's happening synchronously, so we can talk together, and we can actually have a meeting, or we can share thoughts. Social media, I post and you post, but we can spar, but it's not happening in real time. In the metaverse, we could be sitting at a table and having a real conversation, or we could be shoe shopping, or we could be playing a video game, and we're sitting there and we're able to do it together, and I know that he's there and he knows that I'm there. And that's what the metaverse and this vision is what does the internet look like for a generation of people who grew up playing Minecraft and Fortnite and who spent the last year and a half interacting on Zoom? And that is the essence of the metaverse and why there's so much hype and excitement about it right now.
And we should be clear that it's not like there's one metaverse. Different people make individual metaverses. Some people call Fortnite a metaverse.
Yeah.
Tell me the concept of buying land. I said at the beginning you're a digital real estate development. I'm sure a lot of people nodded their heads like they knew what that was, but it's a very interesting subject. Why buy land in the metaverse, and what does that mean?
So Republic Realm, which is a company I run, is the largest owner of digital real estate in Decentraland, the Sandbox, and Axie Infinity, and in 11 other metaverses, and every single day we're looking at buying more. Digital real estate is basically, at its simplest, the land inside a video game. So if you've ever played a video game before, whether it's Super Mario Brothers or Grand Theft Auto, as your character moves around, there's space inside that game. And advertisers can put up billboards. If the game is open source, other people can put games there. In the metaverse, everything's for sale. And we have bought many of the digital real estate parcels inside those metaverses because we believe long-term it can be commercialized. We can sell people things, we can sell advertisers space, we can build games like casino games where the house wins, and there's a way to monetize this space once people start showing up in mass in these metaverses.
And so tell me about how is it performing as an investment vehicle?
Really, really well.
Can you be more specific? Can you put a dollar figure on really well?
So Axie Infinity, which is now the most heavily transacted metaverse game, has increased in value 70 times since this winter. So if you put $1 in, it would be worth $70. Better yet, if you put $1 million in, it'd be worth $70 million. And that's in less than a year.
Yeah, and that the Beeple NFT that sold for $70 million was purchased by Metacoven, who is also a whale in the digital real estate world.
Right.
He doesn't have an address in the real world. Like when we got around to doing KYC for him, we're like, okay, so we need to have a proof of your address. And he was like, I don't have an address. This guy owns so much land, it just doesn't exist.
Right, right. And we should clarify that, the metaverse is like Fortnite, for example, is a private company, but a lot of the ones you're talking about are decentralized organizations that work on the blockchain that Timmy knows so much about now. So there's some interesting sort of crossovers in the home world. There was one that happened earlier this year with this designer named Andres Reisinger, and he sold NFTs of these impossible pieces of furniture that couldn't exist in the real world for, I think it was 11 or something. He sold for $450,000. The NFTs sold for that, and then a European company actually made one of the chairs, which is really cool crossover. And you guys did something a little bit like that too. I got a slide of it up here. Do you want to explain what we're seeing?
Yeah, so these are designs by Misha Khan. One of those is real, and one of those is not real. These were sold as a single lot in the context of his NFT collection at Christie's recently. And basically, this is furniture for the metaverse. This is furniture that doesn't exist for land that doesn't exist. And if you feel so inclined, you can 3D print these designs because the NFT it contains essentially the FXB files to print these out in real life. Or is it FBX, FXB? I'm dyslexic, so you'll have to forgive me.
All right.
But in any case, for this lot, the purchaser got the NFT and the physical. And the rest of the lots in the sale were just NFTs with the digital file included. So if people felt like they wanted to have this in their homes, in the meat space, as they call it,
right.
Then they can.
That's where we are right now.
That's where we are.
We're in the
We missed a huge opportunity to do this in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Could have done this,
Well, what I love about this too is that it's like anyone here who's a furniture designer has created something that maybe not quite as insane as that, but has created like a 3D render of a product. Normally, it's not monetized for $45,000 or whatever it was. So, Janine, talk about the sort of developments that you guys build in these metaverses. You don't just buy the land; you actually develop properties and hire architects to build them. I have a picture here of something that you guys designed. This isn't the best picture in the world, but it gives you a general idea. Tell me what's going on here and what you guys do with the property you buy.
So the first real estate development we made in the metaverse was a shopping mall, because I like to buy things. And it's called Metajuku, so it's loosely based on the Harajuku district in Tokyo, which is where all the young people buy really anime-themed streetwear. And we built this Japanese-themed mall in the metaverse that actually has tenants. And the tenants sell something called digital wearables, which are clothes that your avatar can wear in the metaverse, because you don't want to be the worst dressed person in the metaverse. And so these stores sell digital clothes for real money that you can only wear in virtual worlds. And we do lots of projects like this. This was largely an experiment. There are also digital wearables companies where you buy the digital version and you get a real world version as well, which is very much like the chair that you just saw. The word for that is phygital, which is a horrible word, but it's physical and digital combined, where you get both the NFT and a box in the mail that has your thing in it that you bought. So we're developing lots of different things. We just launched a project about 3 weeks ago called Fantasy Islands. And they are private islands in the metaverse. So they're made as an ultra-luxury speculative home development. We sold them initially for $15,000 each. Today you can buy one for about $100,000 to $150,000 each. And you get a unique villa that you can invite your friends to in the metaverse. And so you can see the applications of real-world jargon start to really overlap. We used real-world architects to design this particular project, to design some aspects of Fantasy Islands. So there's definitely crossover between what many of you do day to day and what's happening in the metaverse.
Yeah, it's funny actually. One of my friends actually did buy one of these. It's not total BS. One of my friends actually did buy this island. It's very interesting. I want to talk about sort of the skepticism around some of this. I'm sure I won't be the first person to say like, but they're just JPEGs.
You mean it's not total BS? Is
okay.
that was what you just said?
Yeah, exactly. It's only partially BS. But I do think it's worth talking about. A lot of NFT art. I'm not an art critic, but I would say a lot of it is bad, and some of the value of it seems driven by speculation more than appreciation. Does that matter? Do you guys think about that? Tell me what you think about that.
You're 1,000% right. But I mean, a lot of art in the real world is also bad, so I'm not losing a lot of sleep over that. I do think that there are a lot of really brilliant artists who are pushing the limits in terms of what an NFT does and how they can gamify their projects and push it beyond just a visual expression or a simple static image even. So there's a lot of innovation happening right now. We're at the very, very beginning of this whole new chapter, and just because there's a lot of cringeworthy art out there now doesn't mean there always will be. So I have real faith in the creative minds that are working in blockchain and especially in NFT-based art too.
Yeah, and it just opens up so many interesting possibilities. I was hearing about a piece where it was like the image degrades every time it gets sold, which is so, I mean, and that kind of happens with real art too in a way, but this is like digitally designed to do that. There's so many interesting.
Well, yeah, or like Mad Dog Jones' replicator that was sold at Philips, where the NFT creates more NFTs over time. You know, there's some really interesting stuff happening right now.
Yeah. So, Gina, the metaverse, I do, when I talk about it with people, I encounter a lot of skepticism. I think I've played around on a couple of them myself. I will say they're cool, but they're like a little clunky. There's not always a lot of people in them. Like, is this one day really going to be a place where I'll hang out? Tell me like what the future of it is.
I think we're still, I don't, this crowd looks to be pretty young, but I think we're still in like the AOL era of metaverse development.
The dial-up era,
It's still
Right.
really, really early. I agree with you that all of the existing metaverses are deeply flawed for one reason or another, but the metaverse is already here. Anybody who has children knows that the way that children interact with the internet is very different from the way we do, the same way that I would never think to open the yellow pages to find information about a vendor. Our children would never scroll through a 2D website looking to find their friends or to find a new product. So the metaverse is here. My vision for the metaverse is, I think, different than the one most people are familiar with from having watched the movie Ready Player One. Ready Player One is the Disney version of what the metaverse looks like, and that I think is very testosterone filled. It's about like having a giant and a big machine gun and shooting spaceships. And the truth is, in my opinion, the metaverse is more about meeting people and having social interactions. It may not even end up looking like a video game. It may end up looking very photoreal. It may be very similar to what it looks like to be sitting here side by side with friends, except that we won't physically be in the same location.
Is there a danger, I think pointing out that kids spend a lot of time in video games, I think is a great analogy, but is there a danger of assuming that this is behavior that's permanent? I mean, like if you went back to me, it would be like, the future is Super Mario Brothers 3, is there, kids are there to play a game, and a lot of these metaverses they're just more places to be. Does that matter at all? What's your take on the necessity to have a reason to go there?
I don't think that's the case at all. I think, and the pandemic accelerated a lot of this cultural shift. Children are not there just to play games. That is how they socialize. Mm-hmm. They don't, we used to talk on the phone, right? You'd talk on the phone for hours about nothing. Children are now talking on Discord. By the way, most of this conversation about NFTs happens on Discord and Telegram. Those are the social media channels of choice. And they're talking to their friends while they're walking through the metaverse, and they're interacting. And that is how they interact with the internet. It's very different from how our generation does.
I'm sure that I have clocked at least 3 hours on Discord today, without a doubt.
Yeah, and also I should point out that brands are investing in it as well too. I have one more thing. I think it's from something Gucci did, and I think that's in Roblox. So people are spending money in this world, clearly. We have time for a few questions. There's 2 microphones right there if you want to jump up. I want to just quickly ask you guys, if people are curious, let's hear more about this. Let me check it out for myself. What's the first place they should go? Noah, what do you think?
The first place to learn more about NFTs?
Yeah, or just, yeah.
OpenC.
OpenC.
Go to OpenC,
okay.
Browse OpenC, see what is trading, what people are selling, what they're buying. OpenC is the de facto secondary marketplace for NFTs, and anybody can list anything for sale on OpenC, assuming it's running on the Ethereum blockchain. And that is really just the premier destination, premier marketplace.
Gotcha. Janine?
And I would say check out my website, republicrealm.com, and also buy an NFT. I think what you'll find is it's much more than just buying an NFT. You automatically become part of a community. It generally lives on Discord, and it's really fun. It's probably the most fun you can have during a pandemic, while sitting behind your computer. And the enthusiasm and engagement in these metaverse and NFT communities is really compelling. And it's happening now, and it's not too late. And there are NFTs at all different price points, not just $70 million, but $70, and you can have just as much fun and be a part of this insiders club.
Yeah, no, it actually really is very fun. Let's start here with questions. Please say your name and your company, by the way.
Sure. So I'm Emily Clark with Clark & Co. Homes in Boise, Idaho, and I'm not Timmy, but I'm Timmy's mom.
Okay.
And I can really testify to this because my daughter, who's 10, so we design and build our own custom homes. She spends her day on Roblox designing and building custom homes, and she's selling them to people on Roblox at 10 years old. Mm-hmm. And my other daughter is creating art in Animal Jam that she's selling to people to have in their galleries on Animal Jam. So I think this is it sort of blows my mind that my 10-year-old daughter is I don't know. Is she a genius? You tell me. What should I do with her?
Make her the CEO of your company.
Your child has a bright future. I know a 14-year-old girl who owns a Cryptopunk that's worth maybe $400,000. She recently bought it, was able to do that because she's been flipping NFTs for the last 5 or 6 months, just staying ahead of the curve. She's an artist as well. It has a drop coming up at Nifty Gateway the end of the year, probably. And she gifted my mom her first NFT over the weekend. So yeah, this is the future. That's the kids. When the kids get it and they instinctively understand it, that's the best signal I could ever think of for a durable success story.
Hi, Trisha Huntley from Huntley & Company Interior Design in DC. I'll preface this by saying I didn't know about any of this until you just started speaking, so bear with me. But it seems like the metaverse and NFTs, you guys have sort of cracked the code in terms of ownership and being able to identify who created something. Whereas the design industry in the physical world, I think we've had a really hard time with that in terms of plagiarism and things being derivative. I'm someone who has created products and licensed products, and they've been, knocked off or whatever. Do you think some of what you guys do can be translated into licensing and ownership of product and everything in the physical world?
We're definitely seeing it in the music industry already, which I think is the hard part with interior design is because there's so many elements to it. It's not just the product, it's the placement and the color and the fabric. In the music industry, there really, literally is a file, right? There's an audio file. And so we're seeing already situations where the musicians, the artists, are disintermediating the old music world, the agents and the distributors, and they're able to sell directly to their customers and to sell a finite number of versions of a live concert or of a specific recording of a song. And so they can sell 1,000 versions, or 1,000 copies of the same exact music file, and that will be all that they ever publish, and they will be registered on the blockchain. So I think humans are infinitely ingenious. We will figure out how to protect and monetize things as esoteric as interior design. And I think that because we're already seeing it in 2D files like music and art.
Yeah.
So definitely, just not today. We're not there yet.
I would also, though, caveat here is blockchain is definitely a double-edged sword. So I'm thinking specifically about something that happened over the weekend, and every day also in the crypto and blockchain space feels like at least a week. But over the weekend, there was this huge controversy because on the Solana blockchain, on their NFT marketplace, the most popular projects are blatant one-to-one rip-offs of the popular projects on Ethereum. And people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for a Cryptopunk on the Solana blockchain that is literally a carbon copy. For all intents and purposes, is exactly the same as the Punk on the Ethereum blockchain. It's just on Solana. This has happened now with not just Punks, but with the Bored Apes, with all the other famous, highly collectible projects out there. And it's unclear if they're going to stop this. It's really hard to regulate something that is decentralized. So it's very much like buyer beware. You got to do your own research.
Thanks.
Next question. I think we have time for maybe one or two more.
Hi, Naz Nazawa from Naz Design in San Francisco. My question is with regard to the energy consumptiveness of NFTs and blockchain. So my understanding, right, is that Ethereum in particular as a proof of work instead of a proof of ownership platform like Tezos, that, as the metaverse gets bigger, as blockchain and NFT popularity increases, the energy consumptiveness of all of this going on is also increasing. So while we can think about that expanding and being a huge opportunity, we still nevertheless exist in the physical world where energy consumption, especially in countries where energy is being produced toxically, that's all happening, right? And I was curious if in the work that you guys are doing, if there are active conversations about investment back from this digital universe into improved energy sort of generation.
Yep, 100%. We have Christie's has sustainability goals, I think for 2030 or 2031. You can learn more about them on our website. And we're definitely looking very closely at everything we do with NFTs to offset it and make sure that we're still adhering to all of these promises we've made. But you make an excellent point. Like, this is something that needs to be solved for, and the brilliant people that I was referencing earlier who are working in blockchain are acutely aware of this problem to solve. And I do think that proof of work, while it is really an incredible dynamic solution for this conundrum of making a blockchain work, it's not the only solution out there. We will likely, I hope, in the near future, see a transition towards proof of stake for the Ethereum blockchain even. But there are competitors out there, like you mentioned, Tezos, who don't rely on proof of work. And it's not a foregone conclusion that Ethereum is going to be the Coca-Cola going forward for blockchain. I do think it will be one that can run decentralized applications, but it could very well end up being Cardano or Solana or Tezos. Who knows?
So to translate what he's talking about.
I was about to check
Every
it.
time-
I'm sorry, Timmy.
every time somebody updates this spreadsheet in the sky, all the computers everywhere have to do these transactions, and that requires a lot of energy. So people say that this whole NFT craze is actually inadvertently killing the environment because the amount of energy required to continually update the spreadsheet is actually spiraling out of control. I look back at, have you ever seen a really old car from like 1900 and you had to like put coal in the engine and they were horribly, the emissions were horrendous. It didn't mean cars as an invention were doomed. It meant that the ingenuity of humans had not yet caught up with the technology limitations at the time. And I already see things that give me a lot of hope that people are solving this problem. There are new protocols that are much more energy efficient than Ethereum. Humans will solve this, I promise you. They love NFTs. The enthusiasm in NFTs isn't going anywhere. And if the problem is it consumes too much energy, all of the brilliant minds that are making $70 million for a JPEG are going to convert that energy into figuring out how to solve the energy problem.
I think we have time for one quick, fun question.
Hi, I'm Matthew Bobbins. I'm here in New York with Andrew Joseph PR. I just have a question because seeing how the stock market seems almost unattainable to someone who hasn't ever played with that before, how do you see Bitcoin and NFTs not becoming a similar unattainable playground for the rich and wealthy who already are obtaining and manipulating the prices of those things and those assets? How is this? I understand there was someone who has a 10-year-old child who's already selling on a small scale, but how does that translate into, because there's already a marketplace of rich people who are like categorically taking up all of those assets as they are introduced. So how do you see that moving forward?
Well, I think that there's always going to be a marketplace, like a specialized marketplace out there that's catering to anyone who wants to be involved in NFTs. Like you can go on Hicketnunk, which is one of these other, sorry, I'm speaking a different language.
Yeah.
So you can go on this alternative marketplace that's just like OpenC, but runs on a different blockchain network, and it has very good art available to you, and you can buy it for fractions of the prices that you would see on various other networks. And that's just it'll just keep shifting around.
Okay.
I think also, if I may be candid, a lot of that inaccessibility is in your head.
Yeah.
The stock market, you can buy one share of any stock you want to. Nothing's stopping you. It's just honestly your own inertia that prevents you from doing so. There are plenty of NFTs that you can buy for $70 or $100. There's no guarantee they're going to appreciate into $1 million NFT, but they're absolutely out there. And I think, again, if everybody in this audience comes away with one thing, it's you can do it. Buy one NFT, test it out. It'll force you to understand the jargon and the technology behind it, and your clients and your colleagues will then look to you like you are this Delphic oracle of the future.
Yep.
Right.
Because you know about this thing that they
Right.
don't know about,
Right.
which we can all just be honest with each other because this is a safe space. It's just a JPEG.
Yeah. No, but
That's a good place to end it.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much.